the dead.
Wake the dead! Wake the dead!
With Sean McCann. Greetings, and welcome to Wake the Dead. Today we are very privileged and happy to be joining us today Mr. Mark Devlin. Mark Devlin is the writer of 3 books involving the truth of the music industry and the deep rabbit holes of what you can find. He's dug up a lot of nuggets of gold and placed them all in formation in these books, and they are extremely well researched, and they're very valuable to us in the community who are trying to learn and get an understanding. And once we can get these pieces of information, we can look further and see what's next. Take in your information and use that as a basis to further our own understanding and to expand our own understanding further into this. And you also wrote a fiction book called The Cause and the Cure, which I'm a very big fan of. It was a page turner. It was really exciting, and you integrated many different aspects of the truth research and understanding and the unfolding of truth and the experience that people have when they're encountering this information, and you set that along with a murder mystery plot. I guess it's very interesting, and I'm very happy to have read it, and I'm glad that you've done that. It's a great exploration for your artistic endeavors, and I think that you did a bang up job, and I hope you do more of those books. That's great. Welcome, Mark. Sorry, I keep talking. Go ahead, please. Welcome.
Yeah, what's up, Sean? Good to be back with you. And I'm definitely going to be doing more fiction writing. Actually, the next book I do is going to be the follow-up to The Cause and the Cure. It's going to be called The Gift and the Curse, named after a Jay-Z album title, of all things. And it's going to feature many of the characters that were in The Cause and the Cure. I'm going to update the story to 2001. So, The Cause and the Cure was set in the early 90s for the most part. It was 1990 and the first part of 91. And then there was an epilogue, which was set in 1996. So I'm moving the story on 5 years, and we're going to catch up with the characters in September of 2001. Anything interesting happened that month? Can you remember?
Wow. Yeah, I look forward to that. And I mean, with those, their inquisitive nature, the main characters, they are awake and aware, and to have them experiencing the 9/11 event and to see it happening, unfolding at the time, especially with all the knowledge that we know now 21 years later, you can use that as a basis for that'll be fantastic. I can't wait.
Well, I hope so, yeah. It's going to be set in the city of Oxford again, which is where the first story was set, and that's where I was born, and that's where I grew up. It's kind of ironic to me because I researched the so-called Illuminati and these so-called elite ruling classes, and so many of them get their indoctrination and their grounding at Oxford University. And I was never a part of the university. I never attended those institutions, but it's just very amusing to me that that's where I grew up. And I was right on the doorstep of all these, psychopathic abominations that they send to Oxford to get all their grounding and training and stuff. And also, I suspect many a psyop is cooked up there as well.
Yes.
The social engineering psyops that they dump on all of us, such as Convid, for example, plus many others. I'm sure Oxford and Cambridge universities have a strong role to play in all that stuff. Yeah, so it was kind of fun to set the story there. And as you've said, the characters are on their own personal truth journeys. their own journeys of discovery. And you'll have noted that I've peppered the plot with so many natural law teachings and spiritual truths, and there's all kinds of esoteric knowledge encoded into the narrative, and it was great fun to do that. And I've got so many ideas about how I'm going to move the story forward now. So it's going to be in 2001. It's obviously at the time of 9/11, and we find the characters faced with, I'm not going to give too much away, but there's going to be a localized Oxford version of the 9/11 event, which is incoming. And through symbolism and clues, the characters are able to piece together what's planned and what's coming. So I'm not going to give too much more away because I'm still thinking about it all and it's still in my mind. But that's the first preview of what The Gift and the Curse is going to be all about. And I'm going to be putting that out next year. And I've settled into a sort of writing rhythm now where I put out one book every 2 years because it takes a year to write it. And then I need to spend a year promoting it and just kind of catching my breath and regrouping. And I'm finding it's good to punctuate the non-fiction because it's obviously very heavy in terms of the information. It's quite dark and devastating, with creative writing, with some fiction. So the last book I did was Musical Truth Volume 3. The next one will be another allegorical novel, and then I'll return to the non-fiction after that. But I think I'm going to do a trilogy of these novels, actually. I've done a trilogy of Musical Truth books, and I'm going to do 3 of these novels. And I think with the third one, I'm going to bring the story right up to date, or to 2020 at least. And we find the characters in the midst of the COVID scamdemic, and we see how they dealt with all that stuff. And by that point, they'll be getting on a bit, you know, because they were in their 20s in the early 90s. So by the time we bring it up to 2020, they'll be in their 50s. But I can still have a lot of fun with that.
I love that the way that, I mean, with your nonfiction books, you're able to explain the facts and what's happening and such. But with the fiction books, you're able to explain how a person feels internally as they're absorbing this information. So like you're able to give us the mirror of our own experience as a human. Because like you said, it's very heavy information. It's very, you know, it's black pill stuff. And when you, I mean, it can hurt your own consciousness by staring down these rabbit holes for so long, you know. But to give us an artistic rendition of how somebody uptakes the information and how they process it internally, it can help to give an example for the rest of us, like, you know, how to truly uptake this information readily and properly. And you know, I like how the gentlemen in your story, they would sit around and listen to May Brussel, you know, like they would, it was a fun thing for them. They would get together as a, you know, and you expressed the fun of it, and like the discovery, it creates like a need for more, and you know, an elation when you discover truth, you know. Right. I think that's great that you have that ability to, with the fiction book, to be able to do that for us.
Well, I had a conversation yesterday with another podcast host, actually, and we were speculating on how best to engage a younger demographic on truth discovery and in embracing empowering knowledge. Because I made the point that I do a whole load of conference events and talks these days, and most in the audience would be, for the most part, over 45 or over 50. Right. So the question becomes, how do you engage younger people in their 20s and 30s and get them interested in this kind of stuff? And so that's what I put into the story. You've got these 2 young guys who are in their 20s, and they try to kind of out-occult each other in terms of how much knowledge they've got. And they sit around having conversations about the Kybalion or the teachings of Aleister Crowley or whatever it is, and try to get one up on each other in terms of how much they know. And wouldn't it be great if young people really did that instead of all the bullshit that they do waste their
Yes.
time on, which is put
Yeah.
out there to keep them distracted and keep them away from truth? And
Right.
so it would be great if it could be made fashionable and cool to attain that kind of knowledge. And really, why would people not want to be informed
Right.
on matters that affect them in their everyday lives? And why would any young person want to be a mug, want to be a chump, a dupe? You know, no one likes to admit they've been made a fool of. No one likes to admit they've been mugged off. And yet that's what's happening. And particularly to young people, they're the ones that are right in the crosshairs of the social engineers, all these psyops and all this mind control and all this fear-based propaganda and all the programming through popular culture, movies and social media and all the rest of it is aimed at people in that age group. So it would be great to offset that. And so much of what I put into these fictional stories is autobiographical as well. So a lot of what the characters go through in terms of getting on the path to truth is what I went through myself. So you can have so much fun with fictional writing. You know, you can put all kinds of inspirations in there. And the main character, as you'll remember in the first book, is a young black woman by the name of Verity Hunter. And of course, her name breaks down as truth seeker, because verity comes from the Latin veritas, meaning truth. And I set myself the challenge of imagining what it would be like to be a young black woman rather than a young white male. And it would have been very easy for me to have the main character as a white male. So I thought, well, let me try and imagine what it's like to view the world from a different perspective. So I set myself that challenge. And I've got another female character in there in the form of May Pierce, another coded name, as in she may pierce the veil of illusion, or she may not. Let's see. So those characters are going to crop back up. And it was interesting for me to kind of try and access that feminine part of my psyche, I guess, because we all possess masculine and feminine elements. And I was slightly inspired in that by one of the James Bond stories penned by Ian Fleming, The Spy Who Loved Me, where Fleming set himself the challenge of imagining he was a female character. What was her name? Vivian Michelle or something like that. And The Spy Who Loved Me title involves James Bond being a sort of third-person character who comes into her life. So I thought, that's an interesting perspective to write from. So I tried to do a bit of that with my books, and it's just great fun doing fiction, and it's very cathartic to step away from all this heavy, dense stuff for a while, you know.
Right, and it's like it's a discussion with the viewer's subconscious, or the reader. It's not like this is information laying it out for everybody. You know, it's all lined up. It's information. There it is, easy to read. But with this, it's like engaging with the reader and their own personal experiences and their own, their internal thoughts of how they view themselves and the world around. Really, you've integrated. I mean, it is a fiction book, but you've been able to bring in the truths of the world, and then lay them into you're teaching the readers by explaining the characters. So it's another way of accessing the imagination of the viewers. And I think that it's like you're hitting the right brain as opposed to the left brain. And, like your musical truth books are, left brain organized, all laid out perfectly. And this one, it expresses your creative muscle, and then you can relate all of the other elements of being human and experiencing these times and this information. I think it's wonderful that this great idea that for 9/11 and the third book being COVID, I really look forward to this because your point of view is fantastic. You like with all your research with the musical truth books, you've been in all your left brain rabbit hole digging, you have discerned the from what I can see, the reality of what's going on. Like you, like music, movies, all of this is creating a worldview in the people, and it's creating a culture creation. And like you've absorbed all these things and you've parsed them out, understanding them, and you're like giving us back the information so that we can see with our conscious mind. But this book, this other one, this Cause and the Cure, is making it is another way of uptaking this information for the readers' other aspects of their consciousness, for their right brain, for their imagination to imagine, oh, what would happen if this. So I really love how you're getting both ends of the spectrum. You're really firing on all cylinders, and I appreciate that.
Yeah, thanks, brother. And I've even been thinking as far ahead as the third book. And again, I don't want to give too much away, but I had this idea the other day that at the end of the first book, you might remember, Verity and Keith have just had a child together, a young girl, and they've called her Hope. So there's another coded name, like Hope for the future. So she was born in 1996. So in 2020, she would be 24 years of age, which is the same age at which we found Verity at the start of The Cause and the Cure. So I've got this idea that for the 2020 story, the central figure is going to be Hope, Verity's daughter, and she's going to be kind of treading the same path that her mother had. So that's the idea I've got for the third book. But
that's wonderful.
If I'm not going off at too much of a tangent here, you mentioned a couple of times there, I just picked up on something that you said, the word information. And you broke it down as information. So this might kind of lead the conversation on. But what it put me in mind of is the opening sequence for the 1960s cult TV series, The Prisoner, coming out of the UK. You're familiar with The Prisoner, right?
Yes, I am. Yes. Yeah. Number 6. And who is number 1? Yeah, I am not a number.
Right. Exactly. Very much a product of that psychedelic sort of counterculture era, but absolutely loaded with allegory and symbolism. And I remember watching a video one time of Michael Tsarion breaking down a lot of the symbolism contained in The Prisoner. And he pointed out the fact that when Patrick McGowan's character asks his interrogators, what do you want? And they say, information. Right. He said, they're not saying the word information. They're saying in formation, as something is in formation. And he speculated that the story of The Prisoner is an allegory for these lives that we undergo. So number 6's experience in the village, him being taken there, is symbolic of us coming into physical being. So we leave the spirit realm and come into the physical world. So we're in formation. And he's in the village because he's got to learn certain lessons and undergo certain experiences in order to evolve, which is indicative of what these lives are and what we're all here to do. Yeah. And he can't leave until the lesson has been learned. So he tries to leave all those times and he keeps getting recaptured because we can't leave. We can't get off the wheel until we've learned what we came here to learn. And I thought that was, I thought that was amazing. That was an amazing interpretation on what The Prisoner was all about, because obviously it's very obscure and very esoteric, and people have asked for decades, what was that show really all about? And that's the most convincing explanation I've ever heard as to what that show was really all about.
Right. Yeah, that show is fantastic, and I encourage everyone to also watch that show. It's an allegory for the humans being incorporated, and when we get here, we don't know anything, right? And then our world is created for us and given to us in it's an illusion. We're given this false illusion of reality, because we're in this soup of of worldview programming, right? I kind of wanted to bring it into the gears of musical truth and what you were writing about. Really, uh, you were you were you were giving us a map of the worldview poisoning, and you're showing us how they're creating the culture. And music is so important for people and culture in general because it's playing in our heads during all these memories that we're creating, and it's repetition of uh, phrases and magic sayings that are repeated, and this creates a mind, like a like it man, I'm sorry about my words aren't coming out properly, but
It's
in
early in
any
the morning.
case, yeah, right. It is. Yeah, I just got my coffee. So, the way that music works is uh, it gives us these thoughts and ideas, and it creates like an acceptance. Um, it it gives us the false view of what our reality is. And if we accept, I mean, it's like television too. Television is an extension of the music. Um, it's like playing during our memories, and it's giving us thoughts subconsciously while we're living our lives, and they're bombarding us from all places. Like we can't get away from it. You go into some place and they got this music playing, and then it gets stuck in your head. You get the phenomenon where something sticks in your head, and like toothpaste commercials, they give you jingles, and so it is a magic working in a sense, the way that they capture the reins of your mind, and they make this song play over and over, and then the repetition of the words, and then if it's something you love, like you'll sing along, and then you're saying the words out. If it's a magic incantation, you're saying the words all of a sudden, and then and they started with the music. We talked about this on your show. You invited me onto your show uh, many years ago. Man, it must be 5 years ago. But I was talking about the country music before the Laurel Canyon music was the same thing, and I focused on how it started with the Carter family, and it's like nice family, and then it devolved into like Dolly Parton and like Merle Haggard, and and they set up that end of the dialectic, and then the '60s created the long hairs and like the left leaning. You got the country music or the right people, and then the long hairs are the left people, and then they can
Right.
crash them together in the
Every
'60s.
demographic catered for.
Exactly, yeah, and like they're giving us like the way they give us Alex Jones, like, oh, you want to not believe the news, here, believe this guy instead, and it's like
That's
he's
right.
like a puppet there to scoop us up.
Mhm.
And same thing, like, so they create these cultures, and all of them are devolving us. It seems as though like there's nothing that allows us to grow and become a full human being with the capacity to love and care. Everything is devolving. Have you noticed that
But
as well?
it's dialectics everywhere, isn't it? An
That's true.
example I often give is if you think about the 60s, you had the Beatles and the Rolling Stones both being put out there. And the Beatles, when they first started out, before they started embracing psychedelic culture and pushing LSD and embracing those counterculture values, when they first emerged, they were very wholesome and clean cut, and they were singing these nice boy meets girl love songs. And for many people, they were a bit too sort of lightweight and soft. So the Rolling Stones came right along in their wake, and they were more edgy and
Right.
dangerous and a bit sort of rough around the edges. So if you didn't really like the Beatles, the Rolling Stones were for you.
Right.
And most young people at the time gravitated towards one group or the other. But as far as the controllers of organized society, of these industries are concerned, it didn't really matter which group you embraced. because they were both created by the same forces in the first place. And they were both pushing system
Exactly.
agendas. So by the time you got to the second half of the 60s, it had become obvious what their agendas were. Well, it's obvious to us now, 50 years after the fact, because we've learned how to do this style of research. But at the time, very few people would have been aware of what was actually being done. But both groups embraced drug culture, LSD culture, these changing social attitudes towards family and sex and religion and the value systems that their parents' generation espoused. So they both played their parts in that, and so many other rock groups did. And so it was a very successful dialectic because it got all the young people of the time that were into rock music swept up in it. It's the same as the political dynamic, where you've got, whether it's Democrats and Republicans or Labour and Conservative, right wing, left wing, the idea is that there's a party for you, whatever your value system consists of.
Right. There's only two choices ever.
Exactly.
You know, right.
Whatever party you gravitate towards, the system is getting its way.
Exactly.
Because it expresses itself through these different parties. You don't really have a choice. You just have the illusion of choice, as George Carlin once said.
Yeah, like Baskin Robbins, 57 flavors, right? Yeah.
Right.
And they've always been doing that dialectical, you know, and like when religion doesn't work, they got government to scoop you up. And when government doesn't work, they've got Alex Jones to scoop you up. You know, they keep giving more nets to capture the consciousness of the people that are trying to break free.
That's right. Know? You come to realize just how deep the whole agenda goes and how they've got every base covered. But the good news here, because there is good news, is simply the fact that guys like us are able to sit here doing shows like this now, where we've sussed out how all the tricks work, and we'll never be fooled again in that way. In the words of the Who song, "Won't Get Fooled Again," which is all about social engineering. And that was a group that knew a thing or two about it because they were pushing a lot of it. But, you know, when you learn how the game is played, you're never going to be fooled in the same way again. And it is amazing to me that now we're looking back over decades of social engineering, mind control, psyops, and we're able to strip away all the bullshit and all the padding and see it for what it really is. And we are privileged in that we're the first generation that has really stood a chance of being able to do that because of the incredible opportunities now afforded to us to be able to do our own research as a result of the internet, you know.
Right. It's like
the
a
internet
new renaissance.
The internet is a gift and a curse.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, it's a curse in that it was obviously put out there to monitor and surveil us and gather data, and it's done a lot of that. But the collateral damage that the controllers always had to factor in is the potential empowerment that it gives to us.
Right.
And that's the gift. So we now know so much about the true nature of our enemy as a result of a tool that they themselves have given to us to make those discoveries, which is a beautiful irony.
I agree. And, you know, they have been giving us these truths. They've been writing it down in books. Like you can read Tragedy and Hope, or you know, these written by people that are in the club. And, you know, like Zbigniew Brzezinski writes these books and he tells it all right there, you know. And now that we have the internet, we can share the books, but really it's always been there. And that they do have this other society that's happening at the same time as ours. Like their knowledge level and their separateness has given them a totally different world than what we have. And they are taught how to control and rule people. Like they are built, you know, like Jay Parker and stuff. They, you know, the DuPont family and they torture their own babies, you know, in order to make them perfect psychopaths. And so, I mean, the more you learn, the more you see. And so they're not afraid of giving the truth out to people because they think that, I mean, it seems like really it's probably true that even though the information's there, ignorance is prevailing. Really, everybody, even though the internet is there, most people don't look, and you got to trick them into getting the truth by giving them fiction books that are laden with occult knowledge, like you've been doing. I mean,
Yeah.
it's a feat that we have to overcome to show people this information. And you've really done a great job at your career here. I mean, so much knowledge. I'm very thankful.
Yeah, well, thank you. It's good to know that it resonates out there. And what I'm trying to do with these novels is the same as the so-called elites have been doing, but with different motives. So thinking of a couple of classic books, Aldous Huxley's Brave New World and
Right.
George Orwell's 1984, they were telling us what to expect in the future because
Straight
they
up.
were in the club. They had that knowledge, that information, access to it, and they'd woven it into the fabric of those supposed works of fictions, which were actually instruction manuals, it seems. But in the same way that they were dropping all this truth on people, but presenting it in the guise of fiction, that's what I'm trying to do through my books.
Right.
But I'm not doing it to satanically mock people or to fulfill this tenet of placing the truth in plain sight. I'm putting these truth bombs in there to try and empower people and to try and put something out there that resonates with their soul, with the very fabric of their being, and makes sense to them, awakening archetypes that are deep in their psyche, that kind of thing, But
I saw
often wonder,
myself in the book when I was reading.
really?
Those guys, when they're listening to Mae Brussel and they're hanging out with their friends and they're talking about this information, I was like, that's me. That, what, I related to
Right.
that. So
Right. And you got Max Zeal, the consciousness guru, who
Right.
I wonder who he could be modeled on.
Yeah.
But anyway.
I wonder if he's gonna have a network in the new books.
Well, yeah, he's certainly going to feature in the new book.
Well, that's good.
We'll catch up with where he's at in 2001.
That's wonderful.
A couple of surprises on that front. It's all mapped out in my head. I'm just really looking forward to writing it. I won't get a chance to start it until next year because I've got some outstanding projects to get out of the way before the end of this year. But just going back to what you were saying there, I do often wonder what it's like to be born into one of these so-called elite families, one of these bloodlines, because although we see these individuals as our enemies, as the enemies of humanity, as they are, think of somebody like Bill Gates,
right,
or King Charles, as he now is. I cannot take that title seriously. So.
I'm sorry you're living over there under that that mind control. Everybody thinks he's anyway.
I know, right? WEF puppet, and that's
right.
the point. They're born into these families, and what choice do they have, really?
Right.
Other than to fulfill the agendas that have been set out for them, follow in their parents' footsteps.
Right.
Imagine Nat Rothschild, the son of Baron Jacob Rothschild. He's going to be expected to carry on that family's legacy when his old man finally carks it,
Mm-hmm.
And what choice do these people have?
Right.
Yes, the potential is there for them to say, I want no part in this, and to try and walk away from it. But how long do we really think they would last if they tried to do that? So I'm sure many of them, the Bill Gateses of this world, and so many other people we could cite as examples, carry on doing this evil work because it's all they've ever known. From the very earliest age, they've been entrained in these agendas. They've been abused as well. They get satanically, ritually abused from the earliest age.
Right.
And that breaks down any kind of empathy or any kind of compassion that might have been lurking there in their humanity. It turns them into psychopaths, secondary psychopaths, if they weren't born psychopaths. And that's the only way that they're able to carry out these dastardly deeds. And they really have very little choice. So, of course, we have to condemn them. And of course, we have to oppose anything that they try and put on us. But in the back of my mind is this thought that, damn, what a nightmare it must be to be born into one of those families. We think we've got it bad, but they've actually got it worse.
Yeah. I agree. Like they're the way that they program police and military, where they're over others, but then they're still under them, their bosses. You know, that level of programming where they're in between, where I have power over them, but they have power over me. You know, that I believe that uh, that is much worse than just being at the bottom. And we do need compassion. They, you know, like they were born into this, and we might think we might be mad at them, uh, but we still, I mean, we need to listen to the Buddhists. Like every soul here in flesh is our family, and we need to help them. You know, with mind control.
That's not to say that we should tolerate their bullshit.
Of course,
or
yeah,
even
take no shit. Yeah,
don't give them a free pass. If they're putting harm into the world,
right.
you've got to oppose that, and you've got to oppose them. That's
Yes.
all part of the lesson. That's all part of the soul growth. You're
Yes.
not supposed to tolerate outrageous incursions on our freedoms,
Right.
as we well know.
Yeah.
But
we're
yeah,
trained
I mean,
to do that. We're trained. Our worldview is given to us to where we think we have to. We're given learned helplessness. We're given, this is the only way it is. You know, the music, the movies, it's like the news, everybody, it all puts us into the state where like, I am a subject of someone else's authority. You know, it's just constant. And all of the little issues that divide people, none of it gets to really what the matter is, that we're slaves. Like if they want to argue over like who goes into what bathroom, you know, oh, your gender, this or whatever. Oh, you burned a flag. Oh, you abortion, this or that. Like abortions are still happening. Like everybody's mad that, oh, there's no more abortion, federal law. Like it just causes division, and then we hate each other, and then we all still accept the slavery that's given to us. You know, it's so the music creates these ideas, and you know the new thing is transgender or whatnot, but it's, you know, it's transhumanism. It's going further into the bonds of slavery, um, and we're just going to quabble with each other all the way until we get all the, you know, up into the abattoir, and we get on the conveyor belt. You know,
Right.
I guess that really wasn't a question. Sorry. Anyway,
well, talking about a slave mentality, you know, those
Right.
of us unfortunate enough to be here in the UK had a free sample of that last month when we were told the Queen finally crossed over to wherever she's gone.
Reptile
I believe-
land,
well,
wherever reptiles go.
Yeah, off to the zoo. The zoo in the sky.
Right.
I don't know. I don't
Right.
know when she passed away, but I'm pretty sure it wasn't the 8th of September as we were told.
Right, they were using holograms and stuff, right?
Yeah, they've been using a CGI deep fake rendering of the Queen for at least 2 years. So I've been
Yeah.
documenting this in my
They had
video.
the one where she was dancing around. It was obvious it was deep fake.
Well, exactly.
Why
Well,
do they do
sh-
that?
Because they were showing you how the technology works. They were
Okay.
mocking us. This
Right.
was her Christmas message, the alternative Christmas message of December 2020 on Channel 4.
Right.
And you've got what appears to be the Queen giving this sensible sort of announcement. And then sometime into the video, she starts jumping on the piano and doing a TikTok dance. And
Right. What is she, Tom Cruise, like jumping on couches? Okay. You know?
Yeah. So at that point, the audience is like, oh, okay, it wasn't the Queen. It's
Right.
just some clever deep fakery, you know. But what was actually going on there is they were showing those with the eyes to see and the will to take on the information that you've actually been looking at a CGI Queen for quite some time.
Right.
So in so many so-called interviews, so-called public appearances, it's clear, even to me, to my untrained eye, I'm
Right.
very far from any kind of technical expert, but it's been obvious for me to see that that's not been the Queen. There was one ridiculous thing where she jumped on a Zoom call with 5 other people. Who knew the Queen does Zoom, right?
Yeah.
So she's there.
She
in the
doesn't even
drawing
wipe her
room.
own ass, like, but she's gonna jump on
Yeah.
a Zoom call.
She's there in the drawing room of Buckingham Palace, self-isolating, you know, because it'd be selfish not to. And she's hooked up her own laptop with her own internet connection and jumped on a Zoom call to have a chat with these other people.
I
And
bet.
it's just so obvious from that it wasn't the Queen. So she's been
Right.
dead for some time, and they've just sat on the announcement
It's
till it
interesting.
suited them to make it.
I
But
bet it
you know,
suited
the
them because
funeral,
of. Okay, please continue.
the,
Sorry.
the funeral was a massive energy harvesting ritual.
Right.
And it put me very much in mind of the situation with Princess Diana when she died in 1997. And I can remember very well the funeral that she was given in September of 97. There was a very strange atmosphere all over the UK. I was still a full-time DJ at the time and had a DJ gig that night in Cardiff in Wales. And I went into the gig, and it was just this really solemn kind of atmosphere in the club. Nobody wanted to party. Nobody was in any kind of weekend Saturday night mode, you know. And that was like a precursor for what we had with the Queen's funeral. So a couple of weeks ago,
People loved Diana. I mean,
well,
the
yeah,
Queen
that's the
is
difference.
she's a
That's the
reptile.
difference.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, Diana was very popular with people.
Right.
They called her the People's
Right.
Princess, whereas the Queen was far less popular, or you would think. But still, a lot of people got into that solemn sort of mindset on a Monday. Her funeral was a Monday this time round. It was a rainy day. It was just grim and grey and morbid. And that's what it was. It was a massive energy harvesting ritual.
Right.
But seeing all these hordes of slaves worshipping this symbol of their own enslavement was
Right.
a very disheartening thing for those of us who pay attention, because it's a little reminder that still
Yeah.
so many people are under Stockholm syndrome
Right.
mind control. And this would
Eric
have been the
Clapton.
perfect opportunity. Well, I know Eric Clapton playing God Save the Queen. We thought better of Eric, but he's told us,
Dude, what
he's
is
let
he
us know his
doing?
true nature there, you know.
Right.
This would have
right.
been the perfect opportunity for this nation to throw off this outdated institution of monarchy and say,
Yeah.
okay, enough is enough. It's 2022 and monarchy is a relic of the past, days of empire. Let's move on. You know, we're more progressive than that now. But no, they're
Is it,
continuing the
though?
tradition. They brought in Charles, and you
Right.
know, it continues on.
It seems like the same as the statism that we have, and, you know, the socialist kind of statism that they have in Europe. It's just it's statism, you know, the blindness of the acceptance and the learned helplessness. It's just in your place, it's, you know, it's a bunch of regalia hung on one family, but really, I mean, it's the same like mind control device. Like it's the same working in the citizens' heads. The way that
David Icke has a great phrase. He says, if the Queen had been born into a different family, she'd be cleaning the throne, not sitting on it.
yeah. And it's interesting how they choose, because they're all related to each other, you know, and she's a Mountbatten, whatever, German, like, so it's really, I mean, you got to do a lot of study into like, you know, I mean, Queen Victoria was the mother of all of Europe and like all this, whatever.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Two of the last four British prime ministers have been cousins of the Queen.
Right.
David Cameron and Boris Johnson were both distant cousins of the Queen. So we're given this myth that we live in a democracy and, oh, we're not a dictatorship. No, we're not like those terrible nations overseas where you have these tin pot dictators telling you what to do. No, we vote for our leaders. Yeah, that's why they all went to Eton and Oxford University, and two of them have been a cousin of the frigging Queen. Yeah,
exactly.
We choose them. That's right. We have choice. Yeah,
and like Barack Obama is related to Brad Pitt, is related to Prince Charles,
Madonna.
is related to exactly, and Vlad the Impaler,
and they all descend from Abraham Lincoln. And, George W. Bush was related to
who was a tyrant,
Vice
Abraham
President
Lincoln,
Dick Cheney. They're cousins.
Right.
And George W. Bush was related to John Kerry, his political opponent.
And they're both in Skull and Bones.
And they're both bonesmen out of Skull and Bones.
Right. It's
but
so incestuous.
At least now we're discovering all this stuff. You know, at least we can know it now.
Yeah, thank goodness, man.
Yeah.
I mean, Joe Atwill was talking about how he wanted to test everybody's blood and see who's really in what family and see really what the bloodlines are. I think that's a great idea. And he's the one that promoted that idea of lifetime actors. And you use that a lot in that term a lot. Um,
That's right. Great
have
term.
this latest event has really revealed everybody that's been hiding under the rock, and like, even people like obscure metal bands like the Melvins, or like Mike Patton or somebody, like they're selling masks online. They This band, that like the Melvins, they've always been underground. They've always been like, you can trust them to make, real good pure music. And then now that COVID happened, they're doing online concerts, which is great. They're making money. Go ahead, do your thing, because they couldn't have a real concert. But when they're in front of the camera, they got masks on for an online concert. It's like, what? What are you doing? So all of a sudden, okay, cut them away. Like you say, no more heroes, right? Okay,
Yeah.
chop, chop, chop. And there's nobody left except for these new people that are bubbling up. You got Diesel Automatic. Van Morrison's always been there, but I mean, he's like, he's become a beacon, and
No, you're right. There's nobody left out of the
right,
mainstream, out of household names. Nobody. I
right,
mean, Van Morrison, yes, I've tipped my hat to him throughout all of this because
right.
he's been outspoken about lockdown and government overreach and stuff, but he's still not gone all the way. He's still not
That's
called
true.
out
We're
COVID as a genocidal, murder
right.
program.
Well, we're
Um,
all on the journey. Maybe he'll get there.
well,
I mean,
yeah,
it seems like he's honest enough to look. So,
yeah, I'm
yeah,
giving him the benefit of the doubt.
that's right. Yeah, that's
Also,
great.
Ian Brown of the Stone Roses has been very outspoken as well. It's a shame these
Right
guys
said
haven't done
Fred.
interviews. Well,
Those
yeah,
guys.
in a different way, yeah. But it's a shame that Van Morrison and Ian Brown haven't done interviews. They've put this stuff into their music,
Right.
but I would love to hear them jumping on a few alternative podcasts and
Yeah.
speaking about how they feel. Eric Clapton, we've covered, he said some things about the armed spears, but then he went and bloody ruined it all by doing God Save the Queen at his concert. And then when you get beyond those three names, you start to struggle. And
Yeah.
like you say, you've got all these obscure metal bands and so-called punk rockers and so-called anarchists and so-called
Right.
new wave groups and hip-hop acts. Like Public Enemy, what have they had to say about this? Not a whole lot.
Yeah.
None of
They
them
were
have.
telling everybody to take the jab.
Yeah,
Public
yeah,
Enemy.
yeah. I know, and
It's
they
sick.
all have. So they've all shown their true colors.
Right.
And like you say, there's no one left. No one. Bruce
Do you?
Springsteen telling people to take the jab to go to see him at one of his
Gross.
shows. It's just unforgivable, man.
Yeah. I also heard that Roger Waters is playing shows where you have to take the spear in the
Yeah,
arm.
yep.
I was like,
It's
and then
crazy.
I hear you on your show talking about how Roger Waters is saying Bill Gates is good people, and I'm like, ugh,
He's
okay,
bigging
cut
up
him
Anthony
away
Fauci
too,
and Bill Gates. So yeah,
cut him away.
Roger goes on the do not trust list, which is so
Yep.
long it's reaching
In the
from
waste
here
bin.
to Australia and back. So
Yeah.
you've got to start looking in alternative directions to find the real authentic artists, and
Yeah.
these are the types of individuals that I've been promoting on my Sound of Freedom show for years now. You mentioned Diesel Automatic, awesome, amazing rapper.
Joe
You've
Murray.
got Joe Murray,
Yeah.
likewise. You got K Reno out of Texas, is a veteran rapper
Yeah.
putting out truth music, and many others. There's Guidance out of the UK. There's Lucas Lyon. There's Nate, great rapper called Nate, and so many others. And this is where you've got to look to find the
Yeah.
authentic music, not the household names. Forget the household names. You can't trust them. Not a single
That's
damn
right.
one of them. You've got to seek out these other artists because there is authentic, empowering truth music. This is what we should have on the radio. This is what
Yes.
people should be hearing all the time. But of course, they're not because it's suppressed. It's kept away from the radio airwaves, but it's out there. It's available to
Right.
be found.
And now that because once you learn the truth, you can't go back in the matrix and be like, I still like Beyonce. It's, you got to find something else, and then it's like inevitable, the truth, because you hear the lyrics and you know what the truth is, And then if they start telling you some mind control, you're going to throw it away again. It's like it won't go in. It's once you have this armor of understanding, then their crap doesn't affect you. It's really empowering, like you said.
Mm. I listen back occasionally to the sort of stuff that I used to play on the radio in the 90s and the early noughties. So every now and again, if I want to escape from all the dark and heavy sort of conspiracy stuff, I go back and listen to an old radio show that I did in the 90s, just go on a nostalgia trip. And it's nice to kind of reminisce, because I was very happy in those times. In the 90s, I was having an absolute blast. I loved that entire decade because I didn't know any of this shit that I know.
Right.
So I wasn't all bogged down and burdened by all this crap.
Right.
And I was just enjoying life. But I listened back to the music that I was playing, which was effectively hip hop and R&B, and I can so clearly hear the agendas.
Right.
With the benefit of having done the research into social engineering and how all that works. So on one level, there was what's become known as gangster rap within hip hop, and I listen back now, and it all kind of went over my head at the time, but it's all glorifying criminal lifestyles. You got MCs boasting about how much crack they've slung in the ghetto. Jay-Z, his entire frigging career was built upon him basically boasting about what a major crack dealer he was.
Right. And NWA, like they crack funded everything that they were doing, and Lennon Honor did really
that
good.
Whole gangster rap genre,
right?
And that was all a coordinated agenda. And then you had rappers like Biggie Smalls,
was a crack dealer, and the crack dealing.
Well, many of them were. Jay-Z was
exactly,
actually a crack dealer before he became a rapper. So that's one level of it where you just
and
have
the
all
crack came from the
lifestyles.
CIA, like it was brought into the country. Okay, I'll stop.
It was coming from the establishment.
Exactly.
And you got these rappers who were supposedly anti-establishment and doing crime and stuff, whereas they were actually propping up the agendas of the CIA and the forces that control them. So that was one level of it, the glorification of criminal lifestyles through hip-hop music. But then I used to play a lot of R&B as well. In the clubs, as a DJ, you would put on some R&B and get all the girls on the dance floor. That's the way to get a club night going. You always go for the girls first. So you'd throw on some Destiny's Child or some TLC or some SWV or Aaliyah, whoever the groups were, And I listen back to that stuff now, and so many of the lyrics were putting down men.
Yeah.
They were saying, he's useless, no scrubs by TLC, this guy's a scrub, he's useless, he doesn't do anything for me. Then you got Beyonce and Destiny's Child talking about bills, bills, bills. Can you pay my bills? If you can't pay my bills, get out of here. I don't want you. I just
and now you got Cardi B with Wet Ass Pussy. And she's singing about how I won't do the dishes, I won't make dinner, I only got a man because of this thing, and I'm just flaunt my sex and use my sex to control men, and that's like the best song in the world. Everybody loves it, and little kids are singing along to it. The devolution, like really, like it. If you look at Dolly Parton, I recognize that shit. Like Dolly Parton was talking about her man was crap, and it's the same agenda.
It's putting down men,
worse. It's worse
devaluing and emasculating men. So I can see now
Homer Simpson-ifying people.
That whole genre, that whole agenda, but even thinking about that, it is relatively innocent compared with the agendas that are being pushed now.
Oh, it's
like you said, it's just blatant sexualization of children. So they're putting out these R&B singers and these rappers like Cardi B and Nicki Minaj before her. And there'll be other names as well that I don't pay attention to anymore. Yeah. But they're sexualizing young girls, of 10 years and under.
They dress them up like little kids and put them in a crib as they're in the music videos.
It's sick. You had Miley Cyrus a few years ago.
Yeah, that
dressed
one.
as a baby with a pacifier and diapers and stuff, and she's masturbating as a baby as part of her stage show. It's just fucking unbelievable where they're taking all this stuff.
Right.
So you look back at those agendas in the 90s, pushing criminal lifestyles and putting down men, and you think, damn, that's innocent by these standards.
Right.
And I just keep wondering where they're going to take them,
Where's it
you know,
going?
degrade them
Yeah.
and debase them yet further. But I'm sure
Jeez.
they'll find a way.
I mean, I'm thinking, like, I've been looking at it, and if you look at the occult and how the occult is kind of turning society into Satanism, you know, I think they're trying to turn us into the mirror and turn us around. So like, I think next is going to be, obviously, well, pedophilia is the one happening now, right? But next we're going to have cannibalism and bestiality. I think those are on the block. I think those are, because that's things that they perform themselves. You know, they do cannibalism, they do the bestiality. And then there's dark ritual too. I think that is probably going to be exposed. It's going to be normal for society, so that then the dark occultists can be honest and come to the front and be like, okay, yeah, we you know, we're pedophiles and we, you know, eat people and whatever. And then it's going to be normal for society at that point. So then everybody can be in this one new satanic government. It's,
Well,
I
let's
don't know,
hope
it's
things
pretty
don't
dark.
go that far.
Sorry. Yeah.
Let's hope we head things off before they go quite that far.
Right.
I mean, you know, we're putting in our best efforts, aren't we? Guys like us, we're doing all we can, you know, whether it's putting out
Yes.
books or doing shows or talks or documentary films or whatever. There is so much knowledge now of these agendas.
Right.
And it's got to be a case of each one teach one. So when you come across this knowledge, tell as many people as you can. And if each one of those people that you've affected tells everyone they can, imagine how quickly that process can exponentially grow.
Yeah.
That's what's got to happen. That's the controller's worst nightmare. And it's our best weaponry at our disposal. Just setting in motion an unstoppable snowball that just builds and builds and builds as it rolls downhill. You know, because
I
the
think it's
information is there,
happening.
like I say.
Yeah.
It's no
And
secret anymore.
us having the tool of the internet, instead of teaching one, we can teach 100. You know, even if, like, my podcast isn't like yours, you know, you get many more viewers and listeners, but
Well, I
even
used to
so,
before YouTube kicked me off.
oh yeah, that did just happen, didn't it? I mean, I figured that was going to be inevitable, and I'm
It
surprised
was
that you
inevitable.
actually lasted as long as you did. You
I
know,
know. I
kudos
knew
to
it
you
was
for
coming.
that.
I
Yeah,
knew it was coming one day.
right.
Yeah.
You know, one more question before, about, you were talking about Bruce Springsteen and, you know, how they're pushing the agenda and stuff, but he sold his entire catalog, and everybody else, all the big names, are selling everything to these. I forget what company it is. It's hypnotic or hypnosis is this company that's like buying up everybody's materials, and everybody's selling out at this
Right.
moment. Do you think that's because they're shifting gears and you can't make money this way anymore? They're going to have AI do it from now on or something? What do you think about that?
Well, artists have not really been able to make money from record sales for many, many years now. And the real money lies in merchandising and live shows.
Right.
So actually selling units of music is such a minuscule part of their income that they just don't even bother with it anymore. So it doesn't really mean anything. There's some money to be made,
Right.
but not as much as you can get from these other areas, such as making movies or, you know, getting a product brand. Like Dr. Dre's got his Beats by Dre headphones, and
Right.
P. Diddy's got his Ciroc vodka, and
Yeah.
they all have
Kanye
these
has
brands.
like clothing brand now.
Shoes and shit. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's where their money comes from now. So they're just kind of throwing away their publishing and their royalties and stuff because they don't count for much anymore.
That's really interesting.
That's my best guess. Hypnosis, if it's the same hypnosis that you're referencing there, they spell it hip and then gnosis with a G, don't they?
Yes.
And they were involved in designing record sleeves for some very iconic rock acts in the 70s. So they
Really?
designed some of Pink Floyd's record sleeves.
The photographer worked for them. That the photographer that created the Blade with the Dark Side
Dark Side of the
cover.
Moon?
Yeah,
The
he also
prequel.
the same photographer did Wish You Were Here.
Right.
He's a genius photographer. That guy's
Yeah.
great.
Well, I'm pretty sure it was Hypnosis that were behind all of that artwork, and so many of
interesting.
these iconic
Those are very
sort of
occult
prog rock
images.
albums from the mid-70s.
Right.
If that's the same Hypnosis, then that's who they were.
That's interesting.
But yeah, these artists, you know, they're all showing their true colors now. So Springsteen, you know, has left us in no doubt as to who he serves.
Exactly. Well, I
The
mean,
hidden
I knew he served Mammon when my dad paid for one ticket $1,500. I mean, unbelievable. Just to go see him in New Jersey, you know, he's got to like
gotta have
travel
your
all.
jab.
Yeah.
Gotta wear
Oh
your
no, this was
face
years
nappy.
ago. This was
Right.
years ago. It was $1,500. Like, what is
Wow.
it now? Like, they're, you know, Rage with the Machine is charging $600 for a ticket, and you got to get a jab. Yay!
I mean, I think they should change their name to Rage in Support of the Machine.
Exactly. Yeah.
And
Raging. Yeah.
Springsteen, you know, it's not so much born to run as born to comply.
Right.
He was telling people, you've got to have your arm spear to come see me at my show. At the same time as the Foo Fighters were saying the same thing. Dave Grohl, you know, no great surprises with that guy, because I've revealed where he came from many times before. And he's pushing agendas all day long. That guy.
Yeah, sick.
He's very.
And he was
heavily
probably involved with his wife murdering Kurt Cobain. I'm convinced of that.
Well, yeah, he came out of Nirvana, and many researchers feel that he would have had some knowledge of what happened to Kurt Cobain. And then it happens to his own brother, you know, Taylor Hawkins. His death is depicted in this movie Studio 666, which came out just a short while before. And it's kind of this jokey sort of, I've not seen it, but from what I'm told, this kind of light-hearted, dark, occult, satanic sort of romp. And you have the group go into this haunted mansion to record an album. And you see Taylor Hawkins getting decapitated by a cymbal and obviously dying.
A
and this
symbol.
was a short while before,
like it's like the word itself, symbol, like the symbols
double
killed him,
meaning.
like in his magic, you know, like dude.
So then a short while after that, Taylor Hawkins turns up dead for real.
Right, exactly.
You know, how much tragedy
from the jab that he had to take in order to keep touring with the band. Like
probably that.
Dave
the
Grohl
very
made
same
a rule.
one. The very same one that the group is telling all their fans that they have to have if they want to come see them.
Yeah.
So you got Bruce Springsteen saying the same thing. And for all these decades, Springsteen's been thought of as this sort of man of the people, working class hero, all American, all this kind of thing, you know. So 20 or 30 years ago, the idea that he would have been in support of any kind of government or coercion agenda would have been outrageous.
Yeah.
And yet in 2022, all bets are off the table, and it becomes obvious who all these people are.
Right.
So
I'll give you one more.
He's put out some great messages in his songs. He had his song 57 Channels, 57 channels and nothing on, talking about how TV is all just mind control and bullshit. But here he is now, and who's honestly going to believe that he's genuine and sincere and on the side of the people? And this goes for all of them. You know, Roger Waters, Pink Floyd,
Jello
they all
Biafra,
have their arm spears, all of them. You know, Neil Young coming out the other month and saying he was going to pull all his music from Spotify because he didn't like the fact that Joe Rogan on Spotify had Dr. Robert Malone on his podcast.
He doesn't like free speech.
Yeah. So Malone
what
is
a bastard.
I know. Malone is exposing the clot shot, you know, the bloody arm spear and what's in it and stuff from a medical perspective. He's a medical professional.
He was one of them in the past, and he
was involved in the development of it. But you know, Joe Rogan has him on his podcast, and Neil Young gets his knickers in a twist and says, I don't like the fact that this guy was allowed to say his thing, so I'm going to pull all my music from Spotify. Now, his
music is back on there, you know. It's like he went limping back to them, and now he's go ahead.
And this is the guy that gave you Keep on Rocking in the Free World.
Right. But he was back, but then back in the 90s, he was rocking on stage with the Pearl Jam guy who helped to get Damien Eccles and the gang out of prison after they killed 3 little kids with a dark occult ritual.
Right?
Yeah, exactly.
Mm.
So, I mean, it's like they're all in a big cult of Satanism, and
Yeah.
they all work together with each other.
And who
Uh,
believes that that decision came from Neil Young himself,
of course. He already
rather
sold
than a
his
handler?
catalog.
Rather than
Yeah,
a handler who would have instructed him in what
right.
to do. And then Joni Mitchell comes out in
Yeah.
solidarity with Neil Young and says,
Ugh,
I stand with Neil on this one. So
yuck.
5 decades down the line, these apparent folk heroes, these counterculture icons,
Right.
let you know that actually they're not counterculture, they're mainstream culture
Right.
because
They
they do
pull
what
their
they're told.
mask. Right. They pull
Yeah,
their
yeah,
mask off. Yeah.
yeah.
It's really sad, man. I think that no more heroes is something that everybody should live by,
It's a
because then,
mantra for these times. Has
yeah,
to be.
and with the psychology of, like, the way that animals and clans of animals, there's an alpha and a beta, and if you are putting someone else as the alpha, some imaginary idea of a person who, like, says he's born to run and he wears a handkerchief in his back pocket, and, so if you're putting him as the alpha, that's making you beta just by default, you know? And if nobody's gonna affect the world in a way that they want, if they're accepting being a beta slave, you know? So I think we all need to be our own hero and, like,
Right.
work on
I heard
ourselves, like.
I heard that dynamic expressed in a very interesting way when I first interviewed David Icke in 2011, actually, and he was quite clued up on the music industry and
Mm,
what goes on. And he was telling me about how he finds it so insulting when listening to Jay-Z, the fact that he's espousing the value system of the slave masters.
right.
So Jay-Z's saying, look at all this money I've got, look at this fast car.
Yeah. He's a house slave.
Yeah, he's a house slave.
Right.
And also, so many of these artists outwardly express themselves as Christians. Not that I believe they are, but Beyonce will tell you she's a Christian. She ain't a Christian, whatever else she may be. But that religious system also comes from the slave masters.
Right.
And these artists have adopted it.
To
But
pacify you and to turn the other cheek and give to Rome what is Rome's, right?
all of that.
Yeah.
But another thing with Jay-Z and so many rappers, this became the case in the 90s big time with pretty much every big rapper out there, is on so many of their records, they would mock and taunt their own listeners. So
Yeah.
they're on record saying, look at all this money, I've got this gold chain, you ain't got this, nigga, you ain't got this, motherfucker, I'm richer than you, I'm better than
Right.
you, I've got this
And then
car,
when you're in
I've
the
got this
concert,
home."
he's actually yelling at you. It's like,
Yeah.
like, I've been to a Tool concert where he's yelling, "F you, buddy, F you," like, screaming at your face, like,
Yeah.
"Is this what you wanted? This is what you're getting." Like, whoa, and all the
So
crowd is.
isn't that a really bizarre dynamic when you've got an artist mocking his own audience and saying, you're poor,
Yeah.
you ain't got this, look at all these women, look at all this crystal I've got. And
Right.
people go out and buy this guy's records and they listen to him taunting them. So that is
Yeah,
mind
it's a
control. That
mockery.
is,
Yeah.
that is slavery, mind
Yeah.
control, Stockholm syndrome.
Straight up. Yeah. And that's what we're all swimming in, the slavery, Stockholm syndrome, mind control, all our neighbors. Man, but I'm so glad that you're putting these books out and you're doing this work and you've got your show, even though YouTube kicked you off, we're still here doing it. And, you've got Odyssey is wonderful. Odyssey is great. I love this, and there's also Rumble and, Rockfin and these other things are bubbling up. So truth will have a voice. Everybody's just got to keep speaking and keep, having these conversations,
That's right. I wonder what the best they think is that's going to happen when they deplatform someone from YouTube, somebody like me, somebody like you. Do they think we're the kind of guys that are going to go, oh, well, I'm beat.
Yeah,
I'm just
right.
going to give up. I'm not
Yeah.
going to put my message out anymore.
Oh, shucks. Yeah, right.
Or is it more the case that every time that happens, we say,
Fight
okay,
harder.
now I'm going to double my effort.
That's
I'm going
right.
to try even harder.
Yeah.
You've just made me even more determined to get this message out as widely as I can. I'm going to get creative. I'm going to get resourceful. I'm going to employ everything I can think of to get this message out even wider. That's certainly the way I react to a situation like this. So in
That's
many
what it
ways, they're
takes.
just inspiring us
Yeah.
to be even more effective in what we do. And we are. And
Yes,
we'll
you
continue
are.
to be resourceful in that way.
That's for sure. And your books are a physical thing that are on the shelf. So even if they get rid of the entire internet, somebody can pick it up and say, "Oh yeah." I mean, they're gonna have to get rid of the words and like be able to take away language from people next. You know, it's gonna be 1984 where they erase
Or mass book
language.
burning, like
Yeah, that
451
too.
Fahrenheit.
Right. Yeah, right.
Mm.
But I mean,
That's what I love about books, though. I love the fact that you can go into a library and
yeah,
pick up some obscure book that somebody wrote 300 years ago, and they're long gone, but their words live on.
that's right. And it's still a direct
That's a beautiful
communication
thing.
from. I agree. And it's a direct contact between the writer and the reader. The only thing in between is that book, where like TV has networks and people, and with writing, it's a singular mind putting it onto a page, and then that page is getting uptaken by another singular mind, and that they can relate much closer in that form, I think. Uh, and God bless you for doing it. Your latest book that you just put out is Musical Truth Volume 3. They can did you do the audiobooks of the first two yet? Is that occurred?
Well, actually, the audiobook of Volume 3 is my current project.
That's what you're working
And,
on now.
Yeah, so I've done an audiobook version of Volume 1, and I've got an audiobook version of The Cause and the Cure. And I'm now voicing the audiobook of Volume 3, but it's taking so long. It's just such a monumental task. The
Right.
work is so laborious, so tedious. It's not the actual voicing of it, it's the editing. It's going back afterwards, taking out all the little glitches and the pops and the clicks. But I'm
Yeah.
determined to get that done by the end of this year.
Awesome.
And then I've got to go back and do Volume 2 at some later stage and play catch up with that. But I will get them all done, because actually, you know what's happened, Sean? Sales of my audiobooks have overtaken sales of the printed books,
Wow,
which has surprised me.
that is
And I think it just speaks to the fact that people are so busy and they're running around, and
right.
they actually find it quite convenient to listen to an audiobook on the go, whether
Right.
they're driving or working. But
Yeah.
people really love audiobooks now. They've become so popular.
I agree, and I think that's how we're built as humans. We're built to take in through our ears words. It's been like that since the beginning of time, and the printing press has been a great boon for our mental expansion. But I think that humanity's biology is built to uptake information through the ears.
Yeah. I mean, I've
So
always
that-
found it convenient to listen to podcasts myself.
Right, me too.
I used to have a driving job, so I was out at the wheel of my car for many, many hours a week, and I still do a lot of driving to gigs and
Right.
stuff. And I always have a stack of CDs, because I'm old school like that, a stack of CDs with podcasts and YouTube videos, the audio that I've burnt to CD. And I just
Awesome.
slot them in one after the other, devouring all this information. And I'd say about 95% of everything that I know I've got from podcasts and interviews and stuff in
Yeah.
audio form.
That's great.
And if I've learned that much, in audio form,
Right.
I want to be able to offer that to other people if they find that method to be convenient for them.
God bless
So,
you.
I mean,
I want the audiobooks too.
I was talking about how great it is to have printed books, and I've just said that I listen to
Right.
this in audio form. But
You're a human, man. Like I was
yeah.
saying, I think I think we're meant like that. And in the old times, we had, Aristotle would speak to people. He wouldn't write it down. He wouldn't give them a book, and like I think that's how we're built. So I think you're not like I said, the audiobook has such an effective power because those words can be put down and wait 300 years for someone else to hear it. But I think that the way that humans relate to each other you can hear a lot in someone's voice, their in tone, inflection. You get a lot more information from that. And I think that's why people like it so much. And I'm interested to hear the audiobooks because I work in a factory 10 hours a day and I'm at a machine. Like, it's good to have headphones on because I don't want to be focusing on the machine that I'm working on. I would much rather have
Sure.
my mind somewhere else.
That's why it's great when authors voice their own books as well, because
Yeah.
you've written the words, they've come from your mind. So it's
Yes.
only right that you express them in your way, using your
Yeah.
tone and cadence and stuff. And I think it really resonates when an author reads their own book rather than getting somebody else to read it.
Yes. And that's what you've done. And where can my listeners and viewers find that? At djmarkdevlin.com?
Yeah, well, the
Your audiobook?
audiobooks are on audacity.com, which is like Amazon's audiobook division. So you can get them from there. But if people want to get the audiobooks from me, I can send out downloads from where you can get them. And also the printed books, they can get copies of those from me as well. So they just need to send me an email to markdevlinuk@gmail.com. And details of the books and everything else that I do, so all my videos and podcasts and all the rest of it, is at my main website, which is djmarkdevlin.com. And the email address is there on that website.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much for joining me and spending this time. I very much appreciate it. And you were the first. Your podcast was the first one that I brought information to, and you opened the door for me to podcasting, and then you were my first guest on my show, and it's such an honor for me to have you here again, and I'm so glad to call you friend, and thank you so much, Mark.
Oh, no problem, brother. Likewise, I echo those sentiments. We had a great chat about Rosemary's Baby. I think that was the last show that we did about that movie. And you've spoken about the movies of Stanley Kubrick. I've learned a lot from you about Kubrick and what he encoded into his movies, actually. So
Awesome.
I'm very grateful for that information. You've
Cheers, man.
really
Thank you.
stripped away the layers of so much of Kubrick's work. Incredible.
That's so much. Thank
So
you, man.
we should do another show again sometime on my show.
I would love that, and please, anytime, and I would be honored to be on your show again. Thank you so much for that.
Sure, no worries. Thanks for getting me on.
Wonderful. Well, cheers, man, and I'll let you get back to your life. And thank you so much for joining me, and thank you all for listening to another Wake the Dead.